Hello, ladies and a few good men, and welcome to this episode of the Autoimmune Rehab Podcast, where, as always, you can listen to all previous episodes and download show notes online at autoimmunerehab.com. And the question that I have for you today is, have you ever wondered about functional medicine testing, how it works, why you should consider it, and all the different things like that? If so, keep listening because today's guest, Jennifer Lanie, is going to share all about that with us, as well as some about her journey with lupus and some other autoimmune challenges and different things that she's experienced. So welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Anna Laura. It's so nice to be here.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And so to start off with, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your story and how you got into this whole autoimmune world, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. Well, my professionally, I work as a functional health coach now, and I've been doing that for about a year. And I was really inspired to undertake this path because, as you sort of alluded to, of my own health challenges. So, for me, autoimmune sort of started when I was about 20 years old. So, just over 30 years ago now. uh, and it started for me with endometriosis. So there were, several surgeries and medications and lots of things that I tried, during that time period of my early 20s to late 20s. And then I got pregnant, had a successful pregnancy, a difficult but successful pregnancy. And it seemed like the endometriosis had kind of gone away. Woohoo, I was really excited. And then in my early 30s, I developed lupus. So it's not uncommon for someone to have an autoimmune condition and then have it shift. Sometimes people, will have them concurrently, but for me, all of the endometriosis symptoms sort of went away after pregnancy. But then I had this fun new issue to deal with. So that was about 15 years ago that I was diagnosed with the lupus. And when I initially went to the rheumatologist, you know, I decided not to take the prescription medications that were given to me because, as it was described to me, the side effects were potentially pretty bad, and they weren't really intended to heal me. They might make me feel a little bit better, and I just felt like that wasn't a great option. So at the time, I investigated working with a naturopathic doctor, and that sort of helped me get back on track. And for, I would say, about 10 to 12 years, I did really well with diet and exercise, sort of managing the lupus. And now that's not to say that I never had any breakthrough symptoms or other issues. I frequently got sick to, the point where I would be on multiple doses of antibiotics. It was hard for me to recuperate anytime that I did get ill. But again, the diet and exercise seemed to work until I went through sort of a really stressful period in my life just prior to COVID and then after COVID. And I also got a tick bite and developed Lyme, and that kind of snowballed everything for me. And I ended up getting just sicker and sicker than I had ever been previously. And the diet and exercise piece just wasn't cutting it anymore. So I knew I needed something else. And I just didn't really know what that was because, as anyone who has struggled with an autoimmune condition knows, when you go to your practitioner, your physician, with your symptoms, they're ready to offer you some prescription medications, but they're really not able to give you any hope of ever getting better. And in my late 40s, I just felt like that wasn't a great option. Yeah, I felt like I'm a young woman. I have a lot of life left to live, and I don't want to live it feeling sick all the time and just getting worse and worse. And so I felt like there had to be a way for me to take my health into my own hands. And so I did some research, and I decided to become what's called an FDN, which is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And what that allowed me to do was through my training, it allowed me to run functional lab tests on myself, kind of as a guinea pig through the program, to really sort of understand how the functional lab testing works. And what I discovered is there were a lot of hidden imbalances in my body that were ultimately contributing to, the symptoms that I was experiencing. And by addressing those imbalances, I've been able to work towards wellness again. So, that protocol started for me just over a year ago, and I can comfortably say that I am feeling so much better now than I did just over a year ago. I feel like I'm on the path to where I need to be. I'm not 100% of where I want to be, but I know what I need to do to kind of continue moving in that direction. So
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, that's a whammy. You've got lupus already, and then you got thrown in with stress and Lyme to boot. That's almost a perfect storm for having a whole bunch of issues.
yeah, it certainly was.
Absolutely. So, a couple questions that I know our listeners are probably asking about now about this whole functional medicine testing thing. So, it's probably something that a lot of people have heard of. They've heard of the idea of a functional medicine doctor, functional medicine, different types of testing and stuff. So, a couple of things to talk about here. So, the first thing that would talk about would be how would you say that, like, say, the functional medicine testing that you do would be different from, say, like normal labs that somebody would get, and or potentially the kinds of tests they would get like from, say, like a naturopath, or if they went to an actual functional medicine doctor? How would those differ?
Yeah. Well, the functional lab tests differ greatly from conventional lab tests that your physician will give you. So, in a conventional lab test, it's meant to be diagnostic. So, they're looking at very specific parameters, and they have very wide parameters for where health exists. So, there are lots of very unhealthy people in the pool. And I think that's important. That's important to understand that you're being compared to other very unhealthy people. And so when you get your lab results back, it happens, you have one of two things. You're either normal, so you're within range, or you're out of range. And so what happens? Well, if you're normal and in range, your doctor's kind of go, well, it's probably just stress, and there's really nothing we can do for you. Or, you can try this prescription, because they will often give a prescription for something because that's what they know how to do.
Hmm.
Uh, or if you're out of range, they will certainly give you some kind of a prescription for something, and God forbid, want to do some kind of surgery on you as well, because again, they're limited in the scope of what they're able to do. The difference in functional lab testing is, first of all, we narrow the parameters. So the people that are sort of in that mid-range are healthy people. So you want to be compared to other people who are healthy, because we want to be where true health exists. And then the other thing is that we're not really looking for a diagnosis when we do functional lab testing. So instead of saying, you have or don't have something, what we do is we look at a lot of different parameters within a certain lab test. So it's like being a health detective, because when I meet with a client and I look at all of the symptoms that they have, and then I look at their functional lab work, I kind of correlate the two. And it helps me to kind of paint this big picture, this 30,000-foot view of somebody, if you will, to kind of take a look at what's going on in their whole body. And that's, again, one of the really big differences. So I will never diagnose anybody, and most functional health coaches, or even anyone doing functional medicine, may not do any kind of diagnosis. But what we are doing is looking to see where there are hidden imbalances, because anytime there's an imbalance in your body, it's sort of shifting the way your body functions. Think of it sort of as, your body robbing from Peter to pay Paul. So imbalances are like dominoes. And as soon as one domino starts to fall, the other ones start to fall too. And it's kind of like there's a little person at the end holding up the dominoes and trying to keep them from falling. But the weight of the dominoes is creating some tension in the body. So finding where those imbalances are and being able to address them really helps to get to the root of the problem, so to speak. We may never be able to diagnose specifically why something is happening, but we can start to create a plan for how to move yourself away from those imbalances.
That's awesome. That's good. So say somebody does have a diagnosis already, say they've got something like lupus or Hashimoto's or something like that. These tests would, potentially maybe also confirm that, say, hey, we can kind of see on here that, yeah, you probably have that too. But it would also expand on that and show where things like potential like hormonal imbalances or, other kinds of things in the body that might not be working in addition to
Yeah.
whatever that diagnosis is that that person has.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the diagnosis is kind of secondary. It can be helpful to understand what someone is experiencing, but you can see two clients who present with the same diagnosis and the same symptoms, and yet when you look at their functional lab work, their imbalances are in very different places. So we are all unique bodies, right? If we look at someone on the outside, you and I, we don't, we might have some similarities, but we clearly look different, and we can see that. We forget that the insides of our bodies are like that too. That just because we all have a stomach and a digestive system and a heart and lungs, etc., they function the same way, but they may not look exactly the same. Our genetics are a little bit different. Those things sort of influence how our bodies express the stresses that are bombarding us and making us feel lousy.
That's awesome. That's good. That's good information. So for sure. So once somebody gets that testing, what do you then do with it other than, obviously explain to them what's on that testing? Do you focus more on like supplementation to help them or diet changes or some of both, or what is your approach?
Well, one thing that I do want to sort of back up and say is that anytime that I work with a client and they do functional lab testing, I explain, every parameter that we test. I explain why we're testing it, what it shows us, and how it correlates to symptoms that they're having. Because I want them to understand what the test is for. And then my approach is, we call it dress for success protocol. So it's 5 parts. It focuses on diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. So it's diet and lifestyle because, as I said, I managed my lupus pretty well with diet and exercise, but I had this really big stress piece in my life. I was very much part of the hustle culture, up at 6 a.m., go, 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 like the Energizer bunny all day long until 11 or 12 o'clock at night, get up, rinse, repeat, do it again over and over, day after day. If I knew then what I know now about stress, I could have made some changes that I think would have impacted my health. And those are the kinds of things that I really try to help my clients with. So diet is a huge part. We want to make sure that people are eating a diet that's complementary to their metabolic system. So every diet is going to look different, but it will be whole foods and be a low inflammatory diet for everybody. All of my clients, I do suggest that they stop eating gluten, dairy, sugar, and alcohol for 90 days. And, in some cases, longer term than that. And then, rest is really important. Sleep. I think a lot of us don't get the sleep that we need. We think I can sleep when I'm dead. That used to be my motto.
Well,
And
then of course,
yeah,
as the problem goes, is that if you, I'm trying to remember exactly how a statement goes. If you something to the effect of, if you say you'll sleep when you're dead, then you will die sooner than if you slept when you were alive.
exactly. Yeah, I think we hustle, 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 go, 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 and then we burn out. As opposed to like working hard and resting, working hard and resting. There's a way to do both, and that's certainly important. And that addresses the stress piece as well as the rest piece. Exercise is going to look different for everybody. Again, depending on where someone is in their, in their disease, how well or unwell they're feeling. For someone, it might be just a 10-minute walk every day to start with. And for other people, it can be significantly more. But trying to get people moving, because that's really important for our bodies. And then targeted supplementation. And at the outset, the supplements can be fairly expensive. It can be a big commitment in terms of the number of supplements that someone might have to take in a day, but every supplement is recommended specifically for a client based on their specific functional lab tests. So there's no random supplementation that's kind of happening. All of these things together are really meant to help address imbalances. And healing is possible. It takes time for the body to heal. But one of the things that I always think about when I start talking to people about healing is if you get a cut, you really don't do much for it, right? You cut your finger, you kind of look at it, you're like, well, darn it, I need to wash that. Maybe put some bacitracin on it, stick a Band-Aid on it, forget about it. Because what happens, 2 days later, you take the Band-Aid off, you get a nice little scab because your body is healing that cut. Again, your body can do that on the inside as well, but we put up all of these roadblocks that impede our body's ability to heal. So that might be things like toxins and in processed food, toxins that we're exposed to in our environment, whether it's cleaning products or it's plastics or it's things like the personal care products that we're using. There's tons and tons and tons of toxins that are coming into our bodies all the time. And that is a huge place that can be causing problems for people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It absolutely is. And the reality is that sometimes a lot of people don't realize is that, a lot of the cheaper supplements, the cheaper skincare, all those kinds of things, those things are full of toxins and have processed things in them and stuff. And so, at the end of the day, you do get what you pay for. And sometimes
Mhm.
if you really, really want to heal, then yeah, it is going to be an investment of time and money, and you are going to have to go that route if you really want to get better. That's just how it
Yeah.
is.
I think that's a really good point that you made. If you really, really want to heal, then taking your health into your own hands is really the only way to do it. If you're counting on your GP or your specialist to heal you, you're never going to get better. You're going to continue
Yeah.
to just use a prescription. Prescriptions are like Band-Aids. They don't solve the problem. They don't address why the problem is happening. They just kind of like cover it up for a little while. They might help you manage your symptoms, but they're certainly not going to help the symptoms go away.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I sometimes hear from people is that they only want to pay for things that are covered by insurance. It's like, well, insurance these days covers basically your sick care and your emergencies. They're not
Yeah.
designed to cover things that are going to truly make you well. And so the reality is, even if you have to sacrifice in other areas, that, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do if you really want to get better.
Yeah, it's really all about personal choices. I would be lying if I said functional lab testing was inexpensive, because it isn't. Working with a coach like myself can be fairly pricey, but it's all about weighing, what's important to you. How much is your health worth to you? What value do you place on that? And maybe it's not that important to you. Maybe you do just want to have everything paid for and go to your doctor and keep taking prescriptions, and that's fine. That's a choice. But if you really want to be well, then you do have to make some sacrifices financially to kind of get yourself to the place. And it's not just the functional lab testing and the working with a coach. It could be things like switching over to organic products, whether that's food or personal care products or things of that nature as well. I mean, and those can be a little bit pricier, which is unfortunate, but it's it's all an investment in your health. And for anyone that has children, uh, I just think it's a no-brainer, right? Why would you expose your kids to all of those toxins when you have the opportunity to prevent them from being exposed to them, right? The more you're exposed to the toxins, the more potential you have for developing illnesses down the road.
Absolutely, for sure. And so let's address the whole Lyme thing as well, because I know that that comes up a lot. And a lot of times people can even sometimes get diagnosed with an autoimmune and then later realize, oh, that they actually had Lyme, and that Lyme sometimes, those co-Lyme infections can actually even trigger the autoimmune or make it worse or do all kinds of
Yeah.
things and stuff. So did
Yeah.
you do anything additional to address the Lyme? And if so, what did you do about that specifically?
Yeah, I've done a lot of work for opening up detox pathways. One thing that I do that might be uh, unpleasant to some people is coffee enemas, because that's a really great way to do some detox. I've switched over all of my personal care, my cleaning products. Uh, and again, it's been an investment. I've done it slowly over time, but I've been working on that. I take Epsom salt baths. I drink lemon water in the morning. I have detox tea. I go to hot yoga and I try to sweat it out. So, there's we definitely, our bodies are able to detox, but when they get overloaded, they're unable to do that, and that can create lots of other problems. So that can be one of the reasons why people who get Lyme, or COVID is another example. With long COVID, right, long Lyme, it's like you take the antibiotic, or you get over the actual acute sickness, but then you have this ongoing just chronic malaise that kind of doesn't ever go away. And some of that can just be, lingering junk in your body that your body just can't get rid of. We need to help
That's
our
a good
bodies do
point for
that.
sure. Yeah, I haven't tried the coffee enemas yet, but I've heard good things about them. And I mean, they're fairly inexpensive too. And even some of the things like the lemon juice and the lemon water, the Epsom salts, those kind of things, those things are actually not very expensive at all. So you
Yeah.
can do stuff like that, and it's pretty
Dry
inexpensive.
brushing, that's another great example of a
Yeah.
way that you can detox.
Mhm.
Sweating is cheap. It's one of your best detoxifiers. Your skin is a huge surface area, and as you sweat off toxins. And one of the ways if you are becoming less toxic is when you sweat, you become less smelly.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point, absolutely. Okay, so I think our time's probably almost up, but if somebody is looking to investigate the functional medicine testing and they want to consider whether they're going to consider hiring you, or maybe, they're just kind of looking around, what would be one or two of the key questions or things that they should ask before they, give up their money and go hire someone?
Well, I think the thing that's most important is that you feel like you can have a good connection with whoever your coach is, or practitioner is going to be, that they're going to be accessible, that you feel like there's someone that you can work with, that you feel like you can share sort of personal private information with them. So there has to be a level of trust. I think that is first and foremost the most important thing, because you will be working with that person for an extended period of time. And then secondly, I think, just take a look at maybe some of their testimonials, or, talk to them. I think most people have free discovery calls, and kind of just get a sense of who that person is. What is their experience? What's their background like?
Yeah, that's a
And then
good
as
point. Yeah.
Yeah, and then as far as the lab testing goes, I mean, make sure it's sort of not a one size fits all kind of option. A lot of people will have packages, and that's great, but everybody is a little bit different. So if you feel like your circumstances are not fitting into the mold of what that person is offering, see if they are willing to kind of create something that would be specific just for you.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. And the recommendation too, really, even like you said, a lot of these coaches do offer the free consultations, is book them with 3 or 4 different people, to get a sense of what the personality is, see if you jive better with one person over another one, and
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So where is the best place for people to get in touch with you? And we'll make sure that we have your links in the description so people can go right there and reach out and contact you if they're interested.
Yeah, so I'm on social media. Facebook and Instagram at the Get Better Girl, all one word all together, the Get Better Girl. Or you can go to my website, thegetbettergirl.com. There's some information there on my links in bio and Instagram, and also on my website, there's a link that you can click to book a free discovery call. It's a 30-minute call, and we can just talk about kind of issues that you're having, kind of what you're hoping to get from a functional health coach, and what I would, be able to provide for you based on what you shared with me.
Awesome. Thanks, Jennifer, for coming on today. Did you have anything else that you feel like I didn't ask that you wanted to share with anybody that's listening?
No, well, actually, I did. One change that I think everybody can make if they're already not doing it is stop eating processed food and focus on real whole foods. That alone will make a huge difference for you.
Oh, absolutely. For sure. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.